A crooked stick looks straight when you pull it out of the water. When I say that phenomenalism is perspectivism and that perspectivism is phenomenalism, I mean the radical version of both. Etymologically, radical is root-like or to the root. I might also say ontological phenomenalism, ontological perspectivism, with an emphasis on the ontological difference, the difference between being itself and things that merely are. And this is the difference between presence itself and things that are present. Of course, if you've watched my latest videos, you know that I say that consciousness is being itself specified as presence. So what comes along with this phenomenalism hyphen perspectivism? What is the price we have to pay? What blocks our understanding? So I think the cornerstone of dualism, and to me this was a surprise. I felt like I had discovered something. Truth as correspondence, right? So if you think of truth in terms of correspondence, you have something like a dualism between belief and truth. Now when you unfold this, unpack this, then you see that this typical so-called objective truth has to be the correspondence of something like the pure meaning of a true assertion managing to mirror something like a substrate reality, a true reality. So if you've already adopted this belief, and it's usually a deep unconscious belief that truth is correspondence, then you're already committed to dualism in your very understanding of truth. So something I discovered in Heidegger, which I don't see this emphasized. I've read lots of secondary sources, and this is not emphasized, but it's right there. You can find it in a book with a not so surprising title, The Essence of Truth. It's lectures, right? I highly recommend, if you want to get into Heidegger, read some of the lectures. I mean, Being in Time is great, but it's written for other academics. Heidegger was a famously great teacher. So anyway, Heidegger, he talks about Protagoras, but in this book he mentions relativism directly, and he basically confesses to some kind of relativism. Now this makes sense because for him, truth is aletheia, is fundamentally the perceptual revelation of the object. So a situated perception gives the object in all of its richness. Now, the way that I would demystify truth as correspondence, where I think it comes from, is something familiar and solid, namely, seeing is believing. Seeing is believing. Seeing is personal or situated, and believing is likewise personal. Now I'm a fan of A.J. Ayer. He wrote Language, Truth, and Logic. There's so much great stuff in that book. And Ayer, or Ayer, that's how it looks like Ayer, but it's pronounced Ayer. He expressed very well the redundancy theory of truth in his book, but I don't think he was consistent, or he didn't understand it sufficiently radically, because he would also talk about verification. So there are some tensions in this great little book that you should definitely check out. But despite these little flaws, his phenomenalism, although it used arcane terms like sense data, which he thought of as neutral, neither mind nor matter. He thought reality was made of this neutral stuff. He was a bit like a neutral monist. He basically compactly presents John Stuart Mill's phenomenalism. But he emphasizes a point that Mill doesn't emphasize. He emphasizes an implication in Mill's phenomenalism. He dissolves subjects, empirical subjects, into one another's associated phenomenal streams. This is a psychedelic moment in logical positivism. It's a great achievement. It's a bold achievement. Now, he didn't emphasize what I will add, namely the absence of the assumption of a recalibrated, pre-established harmony. So, John Stuart Mill's phenomenalism, as radicalized by A.J. Ayer, gives us a twist on Leibniz's monadology. Now, this monadology, it's on the edge of radical perspectivism. But Leibniz uses the mirror metaphor, and he sees, the monads, which would be something like streams of experience, as sort of closed in on themselves. So Heidegger addresses this in another great set of lectures called Basic Problems of Phenomenology. And in just 2 pages, he basically says that Dasein is a monad that has been repaired or de-subjectivized, or, as I would say, emptied. The subject is emptied. The subject is a formal concept. The subject is from a point of viewness. The world itself, the life world itself, is manifest. Consciousness is the presence of world, but the world is present from the point of view of the empirical subject at the center of the phenomenal stream.